was a song from the movie Special Chabbis sung by Sunidhi Chauhan. Coming up now is a song from the movie Once Upon a Time in Mumbai. This has been sung by Mohit Chauhan and composed by Preetam.
शबनम पी लूं तेरे गीले गीले होठों की सरदम पी लूं है पीने का मौसम तेरे संग एक पारी है तेरे संग एक खुमारी है तेरे संग चैन भी मुझको तेरे संग बेकरारी है तेरे संग इश्क सारी है तेरे संग एक खुमारी है तेरे संग चैन भी मुझको तेरे संग बेकरारी है मुझ में समाई है कोई हो नदी मेरे सीने में छुपी है सागर तुम्हारा मैं लहरों की छम छम पी लूं तेरी सांधी सांधी सांसों को हरदम पी लूं है पीने का मौसम तेरे संग एक सारी है तेरे संग एक तुम्हारी है
Mengenai mungkin saya cek kamu nawal pesawat, kita di hawali seragam meeting.
Number from the movie Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, sung by Mohit Chauhan, composed by Preetam, and penned down by Ishad Kamil. We put our program Artist of the Day to a pause. We will be back with a few more songs penned down by Ishad Kamil at 19:20 hours UTC. You are tuned to the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We will now be playing Punjabi Sufi songs by Gurmail Singh in the program Regional Songs.
मूमन बेच मसीता, ना मैं मूमन बेच मसीता, ना मैं बेच कुफर दिया रीता। ना मैं मूमन बेच मसीता, ना मैं बेच कुफर दिया रीता, ना मैं पता बेच बलिता। ना मैं पता बेच बलिता, ना मैं मूठा ना फरहां, बुल्ला की जाना मैं कौन, बुल्ला की जाना। किताबा, ना मैं अंदर वेद किताबा, ना बिच पंगा ना शराबा। ना मैं अंदर वेद किताबा, ना बिच पंगा ना शराबा, ना बिच रिंदा मस्त खराबा। ना बिच रिंदा मस्त खराबा, ना बिच जागण ना बिच सो, ओ बुल्ला की जाना मैं कौन, ओ बुल्ला की जाना। शादी ना गम ना की, ना बिच शादी ना गम ना की, ना मैं बिच पलीती पाके। ना बिच शादी ना गम ना की, ना मैं बिच पलीती पाके। ना मैं हकी ना मैं खाकी हो, बुल्ला की जाना मैं कौन, बुल्ला की जाना। बिदा पाया, ना मैं भेद में बिदा पाया, ना मैं आदम हवा जाया। ना मैं भेद में बिदा पाया, ना मैं आदम हवा जाया, ना मैं अपना नाम कराया। मंगनी तेल लेना ते मुंह तक मंगनी, मैं मार के मरोड़ना तू लंगनी, मुरब्बिया जान वाली जान वाली। बाल गोरिए तेरे बाल ने घुंघरुआ बाल गोरिए घुंघरुआ बाल गोरिए कारे बाल से फड़प सप पाल गोरिए फड़प सप पाल गोरिए कारे बाल से फड़प सप पाल गोरिए फड़प सप पाल गोरिए तकीले भी न जान मत खान कट खान तकीले भी न जान मत खान कट खान रख बन के परांदी नाल जानी मुरब्बे अंग जान वाले मुरब्बे अंग जान वाले दिल लड़ा ते मुंह साथ मंगनी दिल लड़ा ते मुंह साथ मंगनी मैं मार के मुरोड़े ना लंगनी मुरब्बे अंग जान वाले मुरब्बे अंग जान वाले अज सजदी हलम तेरी तौन गोरिए तौन गोरिए अज सजदी हलम तेरी तौन गोरिए लम्मी तौन गोरिए दूर वेख के त मोर पहला पौन गोरिए मोर पहला पौन गोरिए दूर वेख के त मोर पहला पौन गोरिए मोर पहला पौन गोरिए गिद्ध जे नाना के तेरा लक जी में काज गिद्ध जे नाना के तेरा लक जी में काज टूट जाएगा जो टूट जाती भांगनी मुरब्बिया नु जान वाली मुरब्बिया नु जान वाली दिल लड़े ते मुंह साथ मंगनी दिल लड़े ते मुंह साथ मंगनी मैं मार के मरोड़े ना तो मंगनी मुरब्बिया नु जान वाली मुरब्बिया नु जान वाली डोर नच दे अखा कालियां गुलाबी बिच डोर नच दे आए डोर नच दे जेड़े तक ले नहीं कुमारी नहीं बचदे आए नहीं बचदे जेड़े तक ले नहीं कुमारी नहीं बचदे आए नहीं बचदे देर काल कान तीर देर काल जेल तीर तेरे पल काने तीर तेरे कान जेर तीर जान दिल दिया
You were listening to Punjabi Sufi by Gurmail Singh in the program Regional Songs, which was being brought to you by the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. Please stand by for the news.
This is All India Radio. The news read by Nishit Kumar. The government has said that the U.S. Religious Freedom Report has once again failed to show proper understanding of India, its constitution and society. Responding to a media query on the recent report by the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, USCIRF, the External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Vikas Swarup said, New Delhi does not see the locus standi of a foreign entity like the USCIRF to pronounce on the state of Indian citizens' rights, and it takes no cognizance of the report, saying that India is a vibrant, pluralistic society founded on a strong democratic principle. Mr. Swarup said that the Indian Constitution guarantees fundamental rights to all its citizens, including the right to freedom of religion. The report has rapped India for failing to do enough to protect the rights of minorities. The Supreme Court has asked the centre to explore the feasibility of holding a floor test in the Assembly of the Northern State of Uttarakhand under the court's supervision. The Apex Court also adjourned till tomorrow the hearing on the centre's appeal against the Uttarakhand High Court verdict revoking the President's rule in the state. The bench comprising Justices Deepak Mishra and Shiv Kirti Singh asked the Attorney General Mukul Rohatgi to take instructions in this regard and respond to the court today. The Lok Sabha has approved the Appropriation Bill 2016 after the demands for grants for several ministries were collectively put to vote and passed by the applying of guillotine. The bill moved by the Minister of State for Finance, Jayant Sinha, was passed by a voice vote. The bill allows the central government to withdraw over 66 lakh crore rupees from the consolidated fund to meet its expenditure during 2016-17. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Venkaiah Naidu has said that the government is keen to discuss Augusta Westland deal in the Parliament. Mr. Naidu told reporters outside Parliament that Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar will make a statement in Parliament today. He also denied any political witch hunt in the case against top leaders of the Congress party. The BJP has rejected Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi's allegation that he is being targeted in the Augusta Westland helicopter deal. The party said it has no intention of targeting Mr. Gandhi, but will not spare the corrupt people. Talking to reporters outside Parliament yesterday, Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad accused the Congress of telling a lie in the matter by claiming that the UPA government had blacklisted the company involved in the VVIP chopper deal. Earlier, on a query on the chopper deal, Rahul Gandhi alleged witch hunt, saying he is always being targeted. Noting that India remains the fastest growing large economy in the world, the International Monetary Fund has retained its growth forecast for the country at 7.5% for this year. The IMF said in its latest regional economic outlook for Asia and the Pacific that this growth momentum is expected to be underpinned by private consumption, which has benefited from the lower energy prices. The IMF said growth in Asia and the Pacific is expected to remain strong at 5.3% this year and the next. But China and Japan continue to face challenges. China's growth is forecast to moderate from 6.9% in 2015 to 6.5% this year. Spain's King Philip has signed a decree dissolving parliament, triggering new election schedule for June 26th. The king took the action yesterday during an appearance with Parliamentary Speaker Patsy Lopez after a May 2 deadline passed for the existing parliament to form a government. This is the first time Spain has had to hold repeat elections since it became a democracy in 1975. The top Indian-American diplomat will be visiting Bangladesh to discuss the security concerns amid a series of murders of secular bloggers, intellectuals and foreigners in the Muslim-majority country. Cessation of hostilities in the Syrian city of Aleppo will be announced in the coming hours, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said today. He was speaking to media after talks with the UN envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, in Moscow. Lavrov said that the US and Russian militaries were currently holding talks on the Aleppo ceasefire. He also announced the creation of a new monitoring center in Geneva, Switzerland. Before we close, a look at the headlines. Government disapproves US religious freedom report, saying it failed to show proper understanding of India, its constitution and society. India remains the fastest growing large economy in the world, says the International Monetary Fund, retained its growth forecast at 7.5% for the current year. Spain's King Philip has signed a decree dissolving parliament, triggering new election scheduled for June 26th. And that is the end of this news bulletin.
This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. Coming up now is the press review compiled by Kaushik Roy and read by Tamanna Sharma.
The Indian newspapers have written in their editorials on the political efforts on forming a government in Spain after the December elections gave a hung parliament. Papers have also commented on the continued violence against minorities and the sections of the society in Bangladesh and have called for stringent action against those responsible. The dailies have also commented on the victory of moderates and reformists in the Iranian parliamentary elections, which concluded last week. The Hindu in its editorial has written on the long political stalemate in Spain, which saw some new efforts on the government formation. On the Radier field last week, the centre-right Fine Gael will form a minority government with the support of arch-rival Fianna Fáil. The political impasse in Spain, which in June will go to the polls for the second time in 6 months, is not very dissimilar. To be sure, the verdict last December threw up the first ever hung legislature since the country returned to democracy in 1970s. Still, the continuing political impasse may not mask the fact that the country's biggest players, the Conservative People's Party and Socialists, together took well over 50% of the vote and a sizable number of seats to command a majority. The quest for stability could well influence voters in the June elections to turn away from smaller parties which they perceive as having limited limited electoral prospects. The Pioneer in its editorial writes that the recent set of fatal attacks on outspoken Bangladeshi secularists underscores how the government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina hasn't been able to rein in the elements spreading terror in the country, even as the latter have seemingly expanded their list of targets. Last week, Zulhaz Manan, the editor of Bangladesh's only magazine for lesbians, gays, bisexuals and transgenders, and his friend was slain by half a dozen men. Days earlier, English professor Rizal Karim Siddiqui was hacked to death in Rajshahi while the teen from the minority community was killed in Tangail. Before that, atheist law student Nazimuddin Samad was shot dead in Dhaka. And this is the only list of people who have been targeted by fundamentalists in April alone. Last year, at least 4 secular bloggers were hacked to death while a publisher was fatally stabbed. Every time, the government promised to bring the guilty to book and clamp down on this reign of terror. And every time it seems to have fallen short. While in some cases arrests have been made, there have been no convictions yet. It is no wonder then that the bigots have been emboldened in their rights. Now it seems like anyone that fails afoul of the agenda of the fundamentalists, such as activists, are put on the hit list. This is of course in addition to religious minorities and increasingly Shia and Ahmadiyya Muslims who have always been the target in Bangladesh. The statesman writes that the outcome of last Friday's elections in Iran signifies a critical forward movement in what was once a profoundly theocratic country. Chiefly the victory of the reformists and the moderates, notably the supporters of President Hassan Rouhani, marks an endorsement of the nuclear agreement with the West, one that is geared to curtail Iran's nuclear program in return for the lifting of international sanctions. Second, the runoff of elections have given moderates and reformists a working majority in Iranian parliament, and for the first time in more than a decade. This would mean that President Rouhani's party and his allies have won 42% of the 290 seats. Simple arithmetic would suggest that this is short of an outright majority, but the margin of victory is reassuring enough to ensure that his plans pass legislative muster. In real terms, this would imply more power to the elbow of a president in factious land. The other striking feature of the elections, and still more in a predominantly conservative country, must be that women have won a record number of 17 seats, the maximum since the 1979 revolution, which had toppled the Shah of Iran and markedly higher than what the clerics, the fountainhead of theocratic government, have gained.
That was the press review compiled by Kaushik Roy and read by Tamanna Sharma. You are with us on the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. Coming up now is an interview with Ms. Archana Ramasundram in the program of Person, Places and Things. The interviewer is Kaushik Roy.
Of persons, places and things. We are privileged to have with us today Ms. Archana Ramasundaram, Indian Police Service Officer, who is the Director General of the Sashastra Seema Bal, one of India's most important central armed police forces. She belongs to the Tamil Nadu cadre of the Indian Police Service and has had a distinguished career in the state of Tamil Nadu, and she also had been in central deputations. Thank you, ma'am, for sparing your time. And first of all, I'd like to ask you, since you are heading the Sashastra Seema Bal and you have a long stint as a police officer in the state of Tamil Nadu, how did you come into the Indian Police Service? Was it by your choice or was it destiny?
It's both, if I can say so. Civil service was my preferred choice for a career, and my parents, especially my father, was very keen that I should join the PS. So, in a sense, I think one ambition of my parents, which I have been able to fulfill.
Secondly, ma'am, you head border security force, that is, manning two very friendly borders, Nepal and Bhutan, and you're also doing a lot of humanitarian work there. So maybe know from you about the various kinds of humanitarian work that your services are doing in these parts.
If you look at the history of SSB, it started off as a people-friendly force. It was more to create a sense of security and belonging in the minds of the population residing in border villages. So basically, not only the people were trained by SSB, the SSB also took up a number of social activities which brought them closer to the people, whether it is organizing a medical camp or participating in any other social development program of the local community. And in 2001, when the character of the force changed to border guarding force and also acquired an uniform character, because earlier they were not wearing uniforms, but now we all wear uniforms. But the EUSP of the force has remained. We still we are closer to the people, and though we wear uniform, our original character of bonding with the people continues, and we undertake a number of programs. For example, just now, 3 days ago, I went to Nepal border. I visited Sitamarhi, and there in our path, we distributed some these toolkits for some youth of the village, 20-25 people, some young boys were given toolkits so that they can undertake some electrical work in the village. So it also added to their employment potential. Right. So this kind of activity we are doing. But then our main role, the mandate essentially is to guard the borders. And friendly borders, let me tell you, they throw their own challenges.
Of course, ma'am, I was coming to that. Because see, this is a very porous border. There's freedom of people to go across, and so what are the kind of challenges, ma'am, that you face in these kind of conditions?
Here, our job is made difficult by the fact that people freely mingle with their counterpart in other countries, and restrictions on the movement are also to be imposed. Becomes difficult at times when criminal elements, antisocial elements, like to take advantage of such a situation. But then we generate intelligence. We also keep in touch with other agencies which are on the border, whether it is a custom or intelligence bureau, and also our narcotics control bureau. Now recently in the human trafficking, we develop only to ensure that we impose restrictions or we detain those who need to be detained.
Right.
And checking ready-made to a common man.
And talking of the charged circumstances in this world that we live in the kind of problems of terrorism and narco-terrorism and whatnot, human trafficking that you mentioned, what do you think as someone who is heading this kind of a sensitive force, what things that can be done to you? See that, as you rightly mentioned, that people are not offered any kind of difficulty, but things go smoothly. But yes, there is a sense of safety everywhere.
This is ensured by way of training our personnel to make sure that they go about their